We're going to begin a new journey today. We're going to begin studying Bhagavad Gita. So let's begin with the blessings of the Lord by offering some prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome all of you once again for the first session of the Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. So today we are going to cover the first 7 verses from the first chapter. We have named today's session as First Things First. So in today's session, we are going to discuss the first 7 verses. From there, we are going to learn some interesting lessons on how we can prioritize our goals. And also we shall understand the art of communication. So without much delay, let's begin. We dedicate today's session to our beloved spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So first we shall read the verses and their translations, and then we shall come back to understand their meanings and the discussion on today's context. Bhagavad Gita 1.1 Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after assembling in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, being desirous to fight? 1.2 Sanjaya Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army gathered by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. 1.3 Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamom Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. 1.4 Atra Shura Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharatha. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Text 1.5 Drushtaketushchekitanah Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bhojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha. There are also great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, and Shaibhya. 1.6 Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujaschа Viryavan Saubhadro Draupadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharathaha. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. 1.7 Asmakam tu vishishtaye tani bodha dvijottama nayaka mama sainyasya sanyartam tan bravimite. O best of the Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So these are the 7 verses that we are going to discuss in today's session. And as I said, there are many learnings that we can derive from these 7 verses. And let us try to understand one by one. So what we'll be doing is, we'll take each verse, try to read the explanation given by the Acharya about this verses, and then we shall see what learning we can derive from these verses. The first verse is the opening verse spoken by Dhritarashtra, the blind king, and he is inquiring from his secretary as to what happened on the battlefield after his sons and the sons of Pandu assembled on the battlefield. Standard of the Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the widely read theistic science summarized in the Gita Mahatmya, glorification of the Gita. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself, in the way the teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. If someone is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita in that line of disciplic succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things which are not to be found elsewhere. That is the specific standard of the Gita. So we have understood many things about the Bhagavad Gita in our previous sessions because we have gone through the introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is. So here a few interesting points are mentioned. We have to understand Bhagavad Gita without personal interpretations, number one. Number two, we have to understand Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna understood it. Number three, if we study Bhagavad Gita, then there is no need for us to study any other book, because everything that is present in any other book is also there in the Bhagavad Gita. That is the specific standard of this book. Now, why did Dhritarashtra ask such a question? If somebody invites you for a lunch and then they serve all the items in your plate, and then somebody asks, after everybody assembled on the dining table and after all the items were served, what did they all do? If somebody asks this kind of a question, it appears to be very silly, isn't it? Obviously, after serving all the items, they started having their lunch. So Dhritarashtra's question is also like that. After my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled on the battlefield with an intent to fight, what did they do? It appears to be very silly, but there is a interesting thing that we get to know from Dhritarashtra's inquiry. It reveals Dhritarashtra's mindset. Let us read this part, we'll get to know about it. The word Dharma Kshetra, a place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjaya What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in the field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of the war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want a compromise between the cousins and the brothers, and he wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield. So, this inquiry is suggesting to us that Dhritarashtra is actually a little bit affected emotionally. He wanted to make sure that whether his sons have changed their mindset, Duryodhana and others, have they changed their mind because they've assembled on a battlefield? No doubt it's a battlefield, but it is Dharma Kshetra. It is a place of pilgrimage, a holy place. Maybe the holy place might have changed the mindset of my sons, and they might go and compromise with the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra did not want such a thing to happen. Hmm? So Dhritarashtra wanted to make sure that this will not happen, and he wanted his sons to be strong on their point, and he wanted them to fight. So from this, what do we understand? Number one, Dhritarashtra, he was so affectionate towards his children. It is a duty of his father to correct his sons when they do a mistake. But Dhritarashtra did not do that. And even on the battlefield, he is doubtful. Oh, what if my sons change their mind? And he is a little anxious about it. He is doubtful. What will happen? So the first verse of the Bhagavad Gita itself begins with a doubt. It begins with a question. That is very significant. We all have doubts in our life. We have doubts about various subject matters. Whenever we are in doubt, it is important for us to express our doubt and get them clarified, get the doubts clarified, so that we have clarity in line. So Dhritarashtra is teaching us, when you have a doubt, you express it. And now he is not asking anybody and everybody, he is asking Sanjaya, because Sanjaya was blessed by Vyasadeva with divine vision. Even while sitting in the assembly of Dhritarashtra, he was able to have the vision of the entire battlefield of Kurukshetra. He was able to see everything that was going to happen there. So therefore, Dhritarashtra is asking his secretary Sanjaya. This is the only verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita which is spoken by Dhritarashtra. Now the second verse, we already read this. So Sanjaya is now replying. So after hearing uh, Dhritarashtra's inquiry, Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army gathered by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. So he is giving a live commentary. Sanjay is giving a live commentary of what happened on the battlefield. So what did Duryodhana do? He went to his teacher Dronacharya and he spoke something. Now here we get to know the art of conveying message. We get to know the intelligence of Sanjaya here. Let us read this part. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that he could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas. They could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya could understand his motive in asking about the situation on the battlefield. He wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king, and thus he warned him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief, Dronacharya, to inform him of the real position. So, you see, very tactfully, Sanjaya understood the mindset of Dhritarashtra. Even though Dhritarashtra did not explicitly tell what was bothering him, Dhritarashtra only asked, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do after assembling on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? That was his inquiry. But Sanjaya could actually get into the spirit of Dhritarashtra's inquiry. Sanjaya could understand that actually Dhritarashtra is anxious whether the place of pilgrimage, Dharmakshetra, is going to have a positive effect on Duryodhana and others, and whether they are going to change their mind. So immediately Sanjaya responded. See, this is very important. Now, in communication, what happens is many times we speak at length, we speak so much, but the other person might not even get the spirit of what we are speaking, isn't it? Now, that is where we say when two people are connected, there is no need of speaking elaborately. When two people are connected properly, uh, words need not uh, be spoken. So many words need not be spoken. Just by a mere indication, the two people will understand each other's mindset. So, the first and the foremost lesson in effective communication is to enter into the frame of reference of the other person. When you're communicating something with the other person, make sure that you have entered the frame of reference of the other person. Like how? What actually is the context in which you are trying to say something that has to be properly made understood to the other person. So that is the difference between communication and connection. Communication is simply speaking words, making sure that you speak and the other person receive the words as it is. But connection is much more than that. Here we see Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. They were not simply communicating with each other. They were connected with each other. That is why Sanjaya could easily understood the mindset of his king Dhritarashtra. So this is the art of conveying a message. Now, for example, let's say you're speaking to someone. Let's say you're speaking to your friend, and you want to convey something. See, tomorrow we have a special event in my place. Please come. Now, that's what you spoke. That's the communication you spoke. That's the words, verbal communication you spoke. But then, how did he understand it? How did he understand your invitation? Now, that depends on the relationship, the connection that you have between both of you. Sometimes you see, even though you don't invite some people, they'll come to your to your gatherings, to your programs. Sometimes you go on inviting, sending so many messages, reminders, but still they won't come. Why? Because communication is happening, but connection has not happened. If that person really feels for you, if that person really feels for you, you just have to tell, tomorrow this kind of program is there, please come. They'll definitely come. So that's communication, that's connection. So Sanjaya, being a very obedient secretary of Dhritarashtra, he had observed Dhritarashtra closely in all different events of his life, and therefore he could understand the mindset of his master. Immediately he responded. He could sense the despondency of Dhritarashtra, and to give him solace, Sanjaya exactly spoke the words which Dhritarashtra wanted to hear. Yes, he's saying, your son Duryodhana, after seeing the battle arrangement, he immediately went to Dronacharya, and now he's going to talk about the war strategy. So this is the thing which Dhritarashtra wanted to hear also. Actually, that also happened truly. and Sanjay is immediately speaking that. We see such communication skills in many, such kind of a art of communicating message in many instances in both Ramayana and Mahabharata. In Ramayana, there is another instance. You know, uh, Lord Rama had sent different parties to different directions to search for Mother Sita, and the party which was consisting of Angada, Hanuman, Sugriva, and others, they had gone towards the south, and Hanuman had actually become successful in tracing Mother Sita, and he wanted to come back and convey this message to Lord Rama. Now, when he conveyed this message, how was he convey? How did he convey? That's very interesting. Before Hanuman had come, other three parties who had gone in three other directions, they had come back unsuccessfully. They were not able to trace Mother Sita. So already three times, Lord Rama had heard a bad news, a negative news. Now, Hanuman wanted to say something which will, by hearing which, immediately the spirits of Ram will go high. Therefore, he said, Društva Sita Aham. He said, he composed an incorrect, grammatically incorrect sentence, but his goal was to immediately bring that, elevate the spirits of Rama. He said, saw, Društva means saw, Sita, Mother Sita, Aham, I. He could have said, I saw Mother Sita. He could have said like that. But Hanuman thought, till the time I say, I saw Sita, it will be very late for Rama to hear. Immediately he should get the message that something positive. Drishtva, I saw immediately. I saw. Saw came first. I saw Mother Sita. So, you see, in many such instances, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are teaching us that when you are conversing, more than the words, it is the connection that is very important. Now, there is one interesting book written by one author, uh, John Maxwell. He has written a book called Everyone Communicates, but a Few Connect. In that book, there are some interesting inputs that he talks about the art of connecting with people to make your communication interesting. But such interesting examples are already there in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. And isn't it such a wonderful thing for us to learn to get into the frame of reference of the other person? When you enter the frame of reference of the other person, then words are simply not so important. The other person will quickly get the spirit. So that is why connection is so important. Sanjaya had that connection with Dhritarashtra. Now, political or politician or leader's competency is also something very interesting that we learn here. Let's read this part. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. Now, Duryodhana is a very diplomatic person. Now, he knows when to do what, just like politicians. Now, what he did, he is the king, but still he did not mind going to his teacher, Dronacharya, and speaking. King generally calls for people and tells, but in that difficult situation, it was a war situation, it was an emergency situation. So Duryodhana thought, let me myself go and speak to Dronacharya. So the positive lesson from this is, you should not always think that, we should not always be with the mood of ego. No, everybody should listen to me in all circumstances, my way or no way. No, that should not be the mood, especially if you are a leader. You must be ready to sometimes bow down before others. Sometimes you may have to the point is, we have to be humble always, no doubt. But if the situation demands, we may have to uh, uh, take the lead. Taking the lead is something which we learn here from Duryodhana's behavior of approaching Dronacharya. Now the verse 3, as we read before, Dronacharya is saying, "Oh my teacher," sorry, Duryodhana is saying, "Oh my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada." Now here you see there is a inherent, you know, uh, Dronacharya was a liberal teacher. Duryodhana is pointing out the mistake of being too liberal, and he's pointing out in a very interesting way. Let's read this part. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander in chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet, as a liberal Brahmana, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, that is Drishtadyumna, was entrusted to him for military education. You see, uh, a Brahmana is one who is broad minded. Dronacharya was a broad minded personality. That is something which we can learn from Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew that Drishtadyumna is the person who is going to kill him ultimately on the battlefield. But still, when Drishtadyumna came to him seeking for military education, Dronacharya did not hesitate. So, what do we learn from this? If you have some knowledge, and when you see a person worthy of receiving that knowledge comes to you, do not hesitate to share your knowledge. This is a very important thing. But Duryodhana did not like this, because with the same knowledge that Drishtadyumna had learned from Dronacharya, he had now become the commander of the enemy camp, Pandavas, and he had expertly arranged the army. So Duryodhana is pointing out to Dronacharya, just like you were liberal that day and you did not hesitate to impart military education to Drishtadyumna, today you don't be liberal to anybody from the Pandava side. Today it's a war and you should not be liberal. So the extreme heights of being liberal is pointed out by Duryodhana. A person must be liberal, but Duryodhana's viewpoint is, now you should not be liberal. Now your duty is to fight. Arjuna is your favorite disciple. Now you should not have a soft corner towards him on the battlefield. You should give your best and fight. This is what Duryodhana is meaning when he says this. So he is indirectly criticizing his guru. Now, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. A very interesting way of pointing out the mistake of the other person. Even though Duryodhana was we see he is the villain in Mahabharata, and he was a diplomatic politician, but still there is one interesting thing that we can learn from Duryodhana, how he pointed out the mistake of Dronacharya. He did not directly say, see, you did the mistake that day by teaching this Drishtadyumna, the military science, because of which now he has come and he is fighting against us. He was not so blunt, but he said, your great disciple Drishtadyumna has so expertly arranged the army of the Pandavas. You see, now this was like indirectly criticizing uh, this person, Dronacharya's liberal mentality. So indirectly, Duryodhana is saying, please do not be liberal again on the battlefield towards the Pandavas. The next verse, 1.4, Duryodhana continues to describe the different kinds of people, the different warriors who had come to fight on the Pandavas side. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yudhana, Virata, Drupada, etc. So here, uh, the one interesting thing that you should note in this verse, Duryodhana, his benchmark, his yardstick for measuring the potencies or the powers of all the warriors on the Pandava side. What is his yardstick? His yardstick is Bhima and Arjuna. So he is comparing everyone with Bhima and Arjuna. That means Duryodhana really knew if at all he is going to be killed on the battlefield, it will be either by, he'll be killed by Bhima or Arjuna. Now, this is called the art of prioritization. On the battlefield, you should really know the strength of your opponent. You cannot be naive on the battlefield. And Duryodhana was not at all naive. He knew very well, even though he is giving a list of all the warriors on the battlefield who had come to fight against him from the Pandava side, but still he is giving special importance to Bhima and Arjuna. Now, this is called prioritizing our goals. Duryodhana was very expert in this. Let us read this part. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were the cause of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Hmm. Now, this is called, standardization. We know, we have studied in science, in chemistry. Now, whenever you know a known quantity, you always estimate the value of unknown quantity with the help of known quantity. This is how we measure, even in physics or in physical quantity. So Duryodhana knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna because they were his childhood enemies. Now he is comparing everyone uh, uh, in par with Bhima and Arjuna or with reference to Bhima and Arjuna. Now, what does it mean? What is the lesson we can learn from here? Prioritization. What is more important for me? I may have n number of things to focus in my to-do list, but what is the most important thing which I cannot take my eye away from? What is the most important thing I should always keep on priority, on focus? Duryodhana did this. He was always cautious of Bhima and Arjuna. So we may have many times we think, oh, I don't have time. Actually, it's not a matter of not having time. When we say I don't have time, it means we are really struggling with prioritization. What is more important? What is less important? We need to give priority and then plan out our day, our activities. Every one of us have only 24 hours a day, but it is all about how we utilize these 24 hours by prioritizing. So this is another interesting thing. And 1.5, Duryodhana continues to list some more Pandava warriors. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kashi Raja, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja and Shaibhya. And then he says, 1.6, there are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. He's saying all of them are no doubt wonderful, great, powerful, but we need to be really careful about Bhima and Arjuna. They are the most powerful. He knew the strength of his opponent. And then the last verse of the day, he's telling Duryodhana, he's telling Dronacharya, for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. So after listing the enemies, he's now talking about his own side. So it is said, if you want to win a battle, you should know the strength of your opponent. So first you must be careful about whom are you fighting against? What is their power? So Duryodhana did that. First gauged, he gave an idea about the opponents to Dronacharya. Now he is going to tell about his own, uh, the warriors who had come to fight on his side, on the Kauravas side. So we shall discuss about this in the next session. What happened next, we will discuss the next session. So to conclude some interesting points what we discussed in today's session, Bhagavad Gita contains all that is in other scriptures, but it also contains things which are not to be found elsewhere. Secondly, we should understand the motive behind the question before answering it, just like Sanjaya did it expertly when he was questioned by his master, Dhritarashtra. Thirdly, competency of a leader or a politician is in acknowledging the roles of each of the subordinates. Fourthly, compare your tasks with respect to the most important ones to tackle, prioritize them, just like Duryodhana compared others' strength with that of Bhima and Arjuna. So these were some of the interesting lessons that we derived from the first 7 verses of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Before we proceed towards the Q&A, I'm sure that many of you might be having a lot of questions based on what we discussed. Before that, a very important activity we are going to do. We are going to now do mantra meditation. Mantra meditation is the easiest, most recommended process to enliven the soul, to help us come to the spiritual platform. So, a very simple method of meditation. Let us practice it now for about 2 minutes. First, we shall be chanting the invocation prayer that's called Panchatattva mantra. This mantra we chant 1 time, and then we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Uh, we chant it and hear it attentively. Okay. So please repeat, please chant along with me. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Now we shall chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We will chant this mantra about 10 times together. And this is not a silent meditation. We need to chant loudly, loud enough that we will be able to hear our own sound. And each time your mind goes there and here, bring the mind back on the sound. Okay, let's do it together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I request you to please practice this mantra meditation every day without missing. A few announcements. So we have the special session on the occasion of Father's Day tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. A tribute to our beloved fathers, my first hero. So please do join us. It will be on Teams. For more details, you can contact Santosh tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. And every Tuesday, we are going to have a special session called Ask Us. You can ask your queries. You can ask questions about life, about human behavior, about human emotions, about handling mind, about prioritizing goals, many such questions. Any question you can ask, and please do attend. It is at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Here is an opportunity for you to practice the mantra meditation every day. You can consider joining the students of IIC who are hosting an online mantra meditation session every day between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. You can join them and do the mantra meditation online along with them. Uh, this is the link. Please make a note of the link through which you can join. And if you join, it will be easy for you. It will become part of your daily habits. Okay. Now, do you have any questions or comments based on what we discussed in today's session? If yes, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your queries. Also, there is a link which is displayed on the screen. Uh, if you have any queries, you can also send your queries, any general queries, not only pertaining to this session, any queries. You can send your queries to this link which is displayed on the screen right now. So, anyone has a question, please raise your hand, else we can end the session. Please do give your valuable feedback in this link. We would like to know how you felt attending today's session. What were your learnings? Did it help? How much did it help or did it not help? So was it worth your time? So please give your valuable feedback in this link, tinyurl.com/td comment. So we'll be very happy to receive your feedback. Uh, I think none of you have raised your hand, nor is there anyone who wants to ask something before we close the session? Okay, so I think Santosh, we can close the session. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all of you for giving your valuable time and being part of the session. We shall meet again, continuing the journey of understanding the verses of Bhagavad Gita. The next session, we have seven more verses from the first chapter that we are going to discuss and see the life lessons from those verses. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.